Welcome to the E-Show with Neil Ravin. With over 1,000 NCAA commitments, the EHL is the proven path to college. Turn it up and learn more about the college placement leader at the Division II and III levels.
Welcome into the E-Show once again. My name is Neil Ravin. This is episode number 20. And for the first time in the revamped E-Show, Chris Cerrella, finally, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, it's about time, Neil. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to it.
And I will say this, though, Chris. It's the first time I've ever done it live, in person, face-to-face. So I haven't had you on for the first 19 episodes, but you're the first one that gets this treatment.
Yeah, I think it's great. I feel real close to you right now, Neil, during this pandemic. So it's really good, though. Really good. Thank you.
Well, we live 10 minutes apart. I figure we can come to within 6 feet of each other during this crazy time. But let's jump right into it. Obviously now 3 years in the books for your program, 2 of which ended with a championship for your team. Obviously, we don't know what would have happened with this past season, how it would have ended. Are you still selling the fact that you're back-to-back playoff champions?
No, I think the biggest thing for us here is the college commitment piece. That's what the Avalanche sells. I think that's what the EHL sells, is the fact that the players can come to these programs, whether it's ours or another program, and you have a good chance to commit to college hockey. So that's our biggest sell right now. The championships are great, don't get me wrong. They're more for the players, I think, than for the coaches, but the college commitment piece is what we sell.
And 53 of them in the past 3 years. Did you expect the number to be that high? You had college commitment success in Hartford, but you're almost at 20 each year.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way it's gone, it's trended in a good direction for me, obviously, and for the players that have come to play for me. But I have to give it to the players, the families, to our ownership. You know, Mario Martiniello does a great job. He gives us a lot of resources to attract those good players, and that's what it's really all about, is attracting good players, college hockey potential athletes, and then getting them from there to college hockey. So, you know, I think that expected, no, but surprised a little bit. I guess I am surprised. It's been great. It's been great.
And when you look at all 53, you're proud of all 53, of course. But are there, 1 or 2, 3 that those kids are with you for a while and you're extra proud of? You really kind of pat yourself on the back for those ones?
Yeah, I mean, like Jared Sleer, who was with me in Hartford, and then came to the Avs, obviously, when I moved, and Benny Thompson, Ethan Clark, AJ Prostowski, kind of all those guys who were with me for a while. That's huge. Like, that just shows that they trust me, their families trusted me in terms of getting them to college hockey. And, they're all important, definitely. No matter what team, what level, no matter where they went, it didn't matter. They're all very important. And the best thing is, Friday, Saturday night, going on U.S. College Hockey Online and seeing that they, had a point or one player of the week or whatever in their conference. So it's really been a true success story here with the Avalanche, and it's been great.
And leading the league in commitments each year, the 2 playoff championships, how do you continue to set different goals for yourself for the future years to keep yourself motivated to keep going?
Yeah, I think the best thing about the Eastern Hockey League is the competitiveness. There's a lot of good teams in this league. There's a lot of good coaches in this league. So you just have to continue to strive to get better as a coach and work that much harder to make sure your kids are getting a little bit more exposure than the other teams. So we just continue to play more games at college facilities. We're planning to play a game, obviously, at Providence College. We're planning to play a game at Plymouth State again. We're planning to play a game at Williams College as well this year. So we just try to get a little bit better every year with creativity because there is a lot of competition, so you have to continue to get better.
And I'm not sure if you know this. You probably do. But this past year, you were 16 for 16 with age-outs. Obviously, you had a few 2000s that committed as well. In the years prior, you hadn't had a perfect number for age-outs. Was that a goal, or is that something that just worked out for this year's team?
It's always a goal to get all your age-outs committed. It's not always easy, but it's always a goal. This year, I think it just worked out that way, I think, this year. I think our age outs were, all of them from top to bottom, were just a little bit more committed to hockey, to the college hockey process than in the past, and those guys saw that success. Where in the past, it just kind of falls that way. I think that sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, but this group this year was very, very committed to being aspiring student athletes.
And whether this season ended or didn't end, if you had advanced or not advanced, you were still in the second round of the playoffs. You still had 30-plus wins. You had the 19 commits. What else are you able to sell about your program, the facilities? Can you talk about what you guys have to offer at the Ice Den?
Yeah, the great thing about the Ice Den and where we play, it's our home rink, so it's fantastic. We have unlimited ice. We have power play ice. We have practice ice. We have weekly skills ice for position-specific skills, offense and defense separated, where they can work with our coaching staff separately as in positional play. And we have a fully dressed locker room with carpet and logo, and we have a dry room for all the players where they can change out of their street clothes and get into their gitch before they go into the locker room. We're adding things every day. It's just a great place. And then we have our goalie coach, Brian Foster, who does a great job. He's obviously an NHL draft pick, played at UNH. And we have Justin Cerrella, which I think is huge, and Justin is our strength coach. So he owns Roots Athletics, which is about 5 miles from our facility, and we have unlimited access to Roots Athletics and unlimited access to a full-time strength coach. So I think those things have really elevated us, and the players know if they come to us and they use our resources to their advantage, they'll be successful.
And that's what I wanted to kind of transition into that recruiting conversation, because it's one of the things that you take the most pride in is your recruiting. I'm not going to ask for your elevator pitch right now, but you call up a recruit and you have a lot to sell. Whether it's the championships or the commits or the rink or you name it. What's the first thing you say?
Well, I think it depends. Everything is a process in recruiting, I believe, and I'm a big believer in talking to parents and families, because you're not just recruiting the player, you have to recruit the families as well. And I think, I open up dialogue, and I gain trust with that player, and I explain to them, I'm not one of those coaches that go out and league bash or bash other organizations or bash other coaches. I just worry about what I can help deliver for that family, and that's putting them on that college hockey path. And with the fact that, I've helped commit a lot of players, our organization here in New Hampshire has also now helped commit a lot of players, that's our first sell. Come to us, be successful. And then we go from there. Then we build our process and our relationship from there.
And one thing that you do every summer is it's almost like you're on the clock up until July 4th is what it seems like, to finish up, then get out by the pool. This year you had kind of like a 2-week head start. When the season ended, I think it was March 12th, did you March 13th immediately flip a switch, or did you try and take a few days to process what had happened and then start recruiting?
Well, the great thing that, and I use this, I've been using it since I started my coaching career, is I recruit in season, the prep school players, the U18 players and things like that. Obviously there's junior rules, so you got to follow the junior rules when it comes to recruiting, but we're recruiting in season. So as soon as the season ends, this year being a little bit different, I automatically start my recruiting full board, because I like to spend time, by the pool, with the family and kids in the summer times. So I try to work as hard as I can from season end till, like you said, July, and then kind of lock it down. So it this year was a little bit different. It was definitely a situation that, it was a little bit of a curveball for all the organizations and coaches. But yeah, I basically started right away, while, obviously settling things with this last group,
And one thing that's hard for you every year is you have so many spots to fill. Do you take a second and say to yourself, yes, I have a lot of spots to fill, but that's because we're doing the right thing and sending these kids to college? Or every now and then do you wish you had another Chris Aarons who's coming back for a third year and can lead your team?
Well, I think you definitely do wish you had a lot of returners, because returners, they already know the game, they already know the EHL, they know what to expect, So you're only coaching them, you're only preparing them for games, really. When you get a lot of new guys, it's a lot of self-management you have to teach, and you got to make sure everybody knows your rules and how you want to run your team. It's tougher to build a team that way, with a lot of new guys, but you start early. So, it is great to have returners, but it's a good problem to have when you don't.
And with the way that this offseason is going to play out, you may not see your team until late August come together. In those situations, do you rely on a player like Chris Aarons to be in contact with his future teammates and kind of say, like, here's what I'm doing right now, here's what you should be doing?
Yeah, right now, we have 3 captains, Chris Aarons, Artem Medichenko, and Ryan Malko. 3 very good returning players for us, obviously. Chris he's a seasoned vet, so, I rely a lot on Chris. I rely a lot on my captains and leadership. We have weekly captains meetings and stuff like that during the season. Right now, we have weekly Zoom conference calls with myself. Chris Aarons does run it, but I'm on it to monitor it. And, we're just kind of chit-chatting away about life, about things that we're doing. Our guys are sending videos, whether they're workout videos or, shooting in the driveway or rollerblading or whatever they're doing on an everyday basis. So we're in constant contact with them right now, not only myself, but our captains.
And you said a weekly Zoom call, but you're not running it.
No. I go on for about 10, 15 minutes, and then I get off, and it's just our team. It's just our team chatting away.
Well, that's the first I've heard of any team doing that, so that's something that a lot of teams can look to do. Obviously, there's so many virtual conversations that are happening right now, and our goal, obviously, as a league is to start September 18th, and I'm glad that you started to hint at this a little bit. Got a little breaking news here on the podcast, but the plan is to have the Rangers and Avalanche face off at Providence College. What was the thought process that went into that, and does it have anything to do with the league not making it back to Providence last year for the playoffs?
Yeah, I think it's a great way to start the season off for us and, obviously for the junior Rangers up here in the North Division. I think it's just a kind of great, first of all, Providence College is a very, very nice facility. So for our players to be able to play in a facility like that right away, I think sets the tone for both teams, obviously. And it also sets the tone, I think, for the league in that, hey, we're going to keep trucking away even though there's this different time in life right now. So I think it's awesome. It's great. And I think the league did a great job, kind of dealing with this whole thing and looking towards the future rather than getting stuck in what is right now.
And when players or parents ask about if there will be a season, how do you try and not convince them and put them at ease that we're going to do everything we can to have a hockey season?
Yeah, I'm just that's what I've been. Obviously, we have to follow state laws and state mandates and government mandates and whatever. But from what we're telling parents is the league's moving forward. There's meetings happening. There's forward movement happening. If other things have to take place later on, so be it. It might change. I don't know. But right now, we're fully functioning. We're moving forward, and we're doing everything that we did last season exactly the same. The Zoom meetings are a little bit different, but we've always had group chats, if anything. But now we're doing a little bit more. It's really kind of cool, actually. So I think although the pandemic has slowed some stuff down, I think it's making players and coaches a little bit more creative on how they're going to run their program.
And if a player does not appear on a Zoom meeting, what are the repercussions?
Well, that's they basically have to have permission from me in order for that to happen. We'll deal with that later, but it's all part of self-management. When you go play college hockey and you miss a meeting, you're in trouble. You miss one game, that team wins, they're going to use the same lineup the next day. Next thing you know, you miss 5 games, and that's a quarter of a college hockey season. So it's all self-management. So that's kind of what we teach. So, we just let the kids know, hey, be on it. This is a mandatory thing. Now, again, some kids are still working and different things, and obviously there's more stuff around the house, more chores to do, I guess you could say. Like as I have a honey to-do list every day that is filled to capacity. So I understand, obviously, that there are going to be kids that at times are going to miss, and that's okay, but you just have to communicate that. We're big believers in communication, and that's why I feel we've had some pretty good teams in the last couple of years is we have good teams. We're not always the most skilled maybe, or we're not always, the best team on paper in terms of skill and points, but we always have a good team, and it starts now.
And if you want to talk about on paper, after last year's roster freeze, you at one point had 6 All-Stars on your team. Not your plan, probably, but you had 6 All-Stars. And at that point in the year, your season started to really take off. Let's talk about the All-Star week for a second, because you've been involved with it every year. We've selected the coaches based off previous Frozen Finals appearances, and obviously with 2 championships, you've had to be the head coach of it twice. And in the first year, we really didn't identify a coach. Now, first for you as a coach, while it's short and sweet, there's a lot that you can take out of those 1 or 2, obviously this past year, 3 games for yourself personally, right?
Yeah, it's an awesome event that the league holds. In fact, I believe it's one of the biggest things that separates us from all the other junior leagues in the country, in my opinion, with the exception of the USHL, just because of what they have accomplished. I think for the rest of the leagues, the All-Star event that we do, we're the only junior hockey league in the country that actually plays college hockey teams. That's impressive. So even for me to, be on the bench and coaching against Peter Belisle, who's been in college hockey for 20 plus years, it's amazing. And I definitely look forward to it every year. Although sometimes I feel like I should probably unplug and take a nap during All-Star Week instead of continuing to be on the ice and coach. But it's a passion of mine, and being able to do it has been fantastic. And you also are learning from other coaches too that are coaching with you. Each year we've had different staffs, from Freddie Meyer to Billy Zanaboni to Rich DiCaprio, Adam Hooley. You're with other coaches, and you learn from those guys. You're learning new drills. You're learning new systems. So it's not only a great weekend, I think, for the players, but it's also a great weekend for the coaches and the league itself.
And one more about the coaches. This year's staff looks like it's going to be you and Rich, and then you've both been involved with it before, but for coaches like Adam Hooley and Jim Mosso who haven't been involved before, what's the first piece of advice that you tell them heading into it?
Well, just enjoy the moment. Adam's a good young coach, been in the league for a couple of years now, and has done a great job with the 87s. And Jim Mosso played for me. Had to be about 14 years ago before going off to Fitchburg State. So, watching his success as a coach has been pretty cool for me. It's another guy chasing my tail, so it's not always fun, but it's been really good, to see that, to see a player that used to play for me is now coaching. It's amazing. And then Rich, obviously, they're right down the street. The Boston Junior Rangers do a great job. They're always competitive. Rich is always competitive in putting kids into college hockey. But for those new guys, Jim Mosso and Adam, take it in, breathe it in, and, keep building towards what you want it to be your coaching future.
So we touched on the coaches and their experience with the All-Star Week. Let's talk about the players. As I mentioned before, after the roster freeze, you had 6 All-Stars on your team with the acquisitions of Ryan Malco and George Vanakis during the season. Obviously, probably before the season started, you didn't have anticipations to acquire those players, but you did, and you finished the season with 6 All-Stars. And what I noticed down the stretch is obviously as a team, you were hitting your stride. But for those 6 All-Stars in particular, it felt like they were going even further. Do you credit that back to what they gained in October, or do you think it was just those 6 guys standing out?
I think it was a little of both, actually. I think as the season got, your All-Stars are always, you always hope that they are going to set the tone for your team. So, what I think they started to realize is that they were a huge part of our team and they had to contribute. And definitely those experiences playing college hockey teams, right? I mean, that's just an unbelievable experience. So I think that helped them down the stretch for sure. But I also think they also all figured out together how to continue to push forward through all the adversities that happen through a season. So having those 6 guys, I think, it was huge for us. Ryan Malco down the stretch, I think he had 7 goals in our last 10 games, and he was really coming into a hot streak after being hurt quite a bit after joining us. So, and then getting George Vanakis as well, who was a veteran player who played, a little bit in the North American League, played in the EHL on different teams, and, getting those guys and then entrenching them with our other 4 All-Stars, it was a great combination.
And one thing a word that has been used a lot in the podcast is team or together. And one thing that you mentioned earlier was that you've had some, plenty of stud players in the past, but it's been more about your depth. Take the Jake Atkins and the Wilga Kerbrats out of it. You haven't had an MVP per se in the league. You did have Nick Strauss, who won the Defenseman of the Year. Not to say that you haven't had top 10 players, but it's been more about the depth. And I really go back to the reasons that you won. In my belief, each Frozen Finals were your depth. Do you credit that? Do you focus on 1 through 25, or do you really try and find that top guy?
I recruit 1 through 25. It's so important now. Having 1 or 2 good players is great, but it's not going to carry you through a season anymore. Hockey's just, coaches have become too smart and players have become too good. So you have to have a well-balanced team, I think. That's just my opinion, and my recruiting tactic is, and I also recruit from goalie out too. We're very, like last year, I think we only gave up 85 goals all season long, which I think was the best in our league. And it's very important. We have that concept where we want guys that are, if you look other than Jake Mendezun this year, Jake Ida a little bit as well, we didn't have the Nick Crawlis type guy on the back end. We had 7 very, very good defensemen, and all 7 went to college. We didn't return any defensemen this year. So from that, we recruit that way. We recruit depth, and we recruit from the back out. So we tried to mimic that. It's been successful, and we tried to mimic that with this year's group. But like every coach says, you never know until August, September when you get going how good your recruiting went. We think it went well, but we'll see.
With that being the case, how do you balance the lineup on a nightly basis?
For us early on, it's kind of a scramble. We don't really have a lot of set lines unless we have some veteran guys like, Malco and Aarons and Matachenko may play together. They complement each other very well, and it could be a good line for us. But that doesn't mean it's going to stay that way, right? So we try to keep it balanced, and we try to find good combinations, and that's why we start early, though. We start training camp in the middle of August, and we don't play our first game usually till almost the end of September. We want a good month to figure out as a staff who our team really is and what our players can contribute. And then it changes from time to time too. We had Victor Nikiforov, great player, but he started the season really, really hot point production wise, and he kind of fizzled off a little bit. And other guys stepped up, where we didn't expect those guys to step up, and they did. So you just never know. So everything's always changing. I usually don't like to solidify my lineup until later on in the first half.
And you started to say we and staff there, and a guy that we haven't talked about yet is Vinny Caligiuri, the EHLP Coach of the Year. You mentioned Jim Mosso, a coach in the league that played for you. Not to try and make you start to feel old here, but Vinny played for you also. That has to be unique now working with someone that you used to coach.
Yeah, actually, I think it's great. I think Vinny did a great job. First year coaching, obviously won Coach of the Year in the EHLP. He did a great job with that team. The one thing about Vinny, we knew when we were hiring him, is he was a leader for me in Hartford when he played for me. Then he went to Potsdam, was a leader there in his junior and senior year, and he's got those leadership qualities that you look for. So I knew he was a trench guy. Like I knew he was a guy that was going to work as hard as he can to build his coaching career and help us build our brand. And also he was going to be someone that the league well represented the league too. And I think he did a great job with that for such a young coach. So yeah, it's a little bit different, no question, because now we're colleagues really now more than he's my player. But at the end of the day, he still calls me coach, and he's learning every day, and he's been a fantastic hire for our organization.
I know it's tough to say. You probably can't look back to when he was a player, but did you ever envision this? Did you ever think this would be the kid that you eventually would coach with?
I don't know if I thought I would eventually coach with him, but I knew he was going to be a coach. I mean, he was a student of the game when he played. And, you could tell the way he runs practice right away, and I'm a big believer when I have young assistant coaches like this, you got to throw them right to the wolves. Here you go, run practice. Here's the marker. Here's the dry erase. Here's your whistle. Get going. We pulled, a couple of little pranks on him and gave him a little kitty whistle and things like that. A little bit of fun for the game, but, he jumped right in and wasn't afraid. And he, obviously, like I said, coach of the year in the EHLP. It was fantastic for him. I'm proud of him.
And you touched on Justin Cerrella, a former player as well, who's your strength coach and does a lot of work with the midgets and the youth with the program. And then at the top of all of it, Mario Martiniello, your owner, is a former coach as well. How does that value help you, knowing that he's not just an owner, not to sound bad or anything, but he also has been in your shoes on the bench? How do you guys bounce ideas off each other in between periods? Does he ever say stuff to you that he sees up top that you can't see from the bench, stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I learned, to be honest with you, I learn from Mario every day. He's he's tough, he's old school, He's got a lot of great drills, great ideas. He's a good bench coach and system coach, so I learn a lot. In fact, our defensive coverage, our D-zone coverage is Mario run, basically. As you know, I was an offensive player, so when I played, so offense was definitely my forte. So, coaching now with Mario over the last 3 years and being part of his staff, he's taught me a lot about the defensive side, and it's helped us with our success. That part of it is fantastic. Having a guy like that who's been in my shoes as a coach, a player, is now the owner, so he knows what our players need to be successful, and I think that's a big part of the direction we're heading.
And this year in particular, after you brought in Vinny, it was the first year of your EHLP team, and one thing that was unique is that Mario decided to step away from the bench. Was that his idea? Did he want to run it by you? How'd that conversation go?
It actually shocked me, to be honest with you. It was something just came out of the blue. He just said, with Vinny coming in, I've been doing this a long time now, and I just want to kind of step back and be proud of what we're doing, and I'll get in the mix, no question, and he does, and he wanted to be able to enjoy, his son went to Tabor Academy this year, and he now has 2 daughters going to prep school as well. He wants to enjoy that too, and he's at the point in his life that he can, and he should. So, from that, it's great. He's still around every day. He's at the rink every single day, doesn't miss a practice. He doesn't really miss many games, even though he wasn't on the bench. If he's not there to watch it personally, he's on hockey TV, I can guarantee you that. So it's good to have him, without a doubt, in every facet of what we're trying to build at his rink.
And you touched on the family man that he is, you as well. Obviously, this being unique off-season, a 2-week head start for your recruiting. You touched on how important it is not to rush to the finish line for yourself, but to focus on recruiting so that you can get to a point where you can really enjoy the summer. And in a summer like this, how, for your future players and for their parents, how much are you stressing what you're doing to try and get out by the pool and step away from everything else going on and just kick back and enjoy the time that you can spend with your family?
Yeah, I was talking with my wife about it the other day. I think even though it's scary times right now to a certain degree, it's enjoyable. I think a lot of people are finally unplugging and sitting at home with their wife and kids or husband and kids or whatever and enjoying that a little bit more. Normally right now I could be anywhere recruiting, and I'm at home with my kids and enjoying my kids even more than I have in the past. So, and with 5 kids, it's a lot of go around, right? So it's been really, really good. Although, like I said, it's a little bit tough out there right now, but I think that players who take this time right are going to be even more successful when it's time to lace those skates back up. Because sometimes there's nothing wrong with just being a kid. And I think it's very important. And for the kids that use this to their advantage, will be successful.
And you talked about your project list. We're sitting in your new home bar right now. You got some memorabilia all around here. I see your Quinnipiac jersey. We touched on what you sell when you're recruiting a kid. How often do you go back to your playing days, whether it was Quinnipiac or Waterloo?
Yeah, I think I just I look forward from it, and what I do normally is I tell families and players, hey, this is a long time ago, but I have been there. I've been there as a player. I've been there as a student athlete, and take it from me, it's not as easy as it seems, right? So yeah, there are definitely days I relive the glory days a little bit for sure.
And we've had too many conversations to count on the phone about your teams over the years, and I didn't want to give away this question before I asked, but I'm sure you listened to the past few episodes. I want you to take a moment and pretend that we are at the next Frozen Finals, and you're there with all of your teams from the Avalanche. We're not going to go back to the Wolfpack days, but we're going to go just the 3 Avalanche years, and you're heading into overtime, and you have one lineup to put out on the ice, 3 forwards, 2D, and a goalie. From your 3 Avalanche teams, what's the lineup that you start with?
Wow, that is a great question. And
we can hear your dog trying to break through the garage door.
I apologize for the dog. But it is a very tough question. I think in goal I would have to have Nathan Pickett. I mean, I had Nick Sorgio and Mike Pagluka and even Matt Lane this year. I have had some very good goaltenders, but I'd have to go with Nathan Pickett. On the back end, I would have to go with Jamie Zanka, and I would have to go with AJ Prostowski. And up front would definitely have to be Jared Sleer, Benny Thompson, and Jake Atkins. And
with that lineup, first off, it's hard to pick, I'm sure, because you've had so many good players over the years, and guys that got left out have, a sub-2 goals against average or defenseman of the year. But one thing in particular that I just noticed with that lineup is you said 6 names to 6 different colleges. Do you put a lot of stock in the fact that your kids or your players are going to different schools?
Yeah, I think that's important. I mean, you do. A lot of colleges, when they get good players from good organizations and things like that, they keep coming back to you. So, I mean, yes, there have been years where I've sent 2 or 3 kids to the same one. But the fact that, and I think this goes for a lot in our league, the fact that our entire league, not just the Avalanche, but our entire league does a great job at selling their players to the majority of NCAA Division II and Division III college hockey is awesome. I think that's a big key. It's not just going to 1 or 2 teams or 4 teams. It's going we've touched just about every East Coast Division II and Division III team in terms of a college placement. So, yeah, I mean, the stock is there that it's, hey, come to us and you're going to have options, not just one.
And it's a network that you've built over the years. How much time have you had to spend, not recruiting, not on the resources that you have, but how much time have you had to spend building that network that you've been able to call up any different Division III coach and say, I have a player for you and here's why?
Yeah, it takes a while, and it takes a lot of work at that, and it's constant communication. And the biggest thing is you have to just be honest, and that's whether your thoughts on the kid, because you as a junior coach, you're with that player every single day. So that college is going to invest in your opinion on that kid. So you have to just be honest. And that's what we do. We're just honest with the coaches, no matter what it is. We let them know the positives, and we also let them know the negatives. And then they can make that decision from there. They already know the player's good. If they're calling us on that player, they already like him as a hockey player. Their next questions are, what kind of individual, what kind of person are they? So we're just honest.
And you started to kind of allude to this earlier when you mentioned the coaches that you've worked with during the All-Star Week. How often have you received calls from college coaches about players on other teams in the league?
Yeah, it happens all the time. And it's not just me. There's other coaches, too, in the league that get the same calls. So it happens all the time. They just want their opinion. You see those players more. I mean, they're recruiting. Maybe they see, 5-6 times they see each player. So they may call a coach and say, what do you think about the player on the New England Wolves or the Little Flyers? You just played them last week, and what do you think about such and such? So it does happen a lot, more than people think.
And obviously you have to be honest with the coach that's calling you, but how often do you then turn around and call that coach in the league to let him know, like, hey, I'm helping to promote your guy? Do you feel the need for that recognition, or do you even bother making that phone call?
No, you may drop a text to the coach and just say, hey, I'm not sure if you've talked to this coach already, but if you did, great. If you didn't, just reach out to him. Absolutely, because everyone's got to help everyone in this. It's one league. Even though there's individual teams, we're still one league. We're only as good as the league. So, the more kids we commit to college as a league, the better each team is.
And now, looking forward, obviously, the league's goals are to start September 18th, and that's the plan that we have right now. Things can obviously change, of course, and we touched on when your team will probably be full by 2 weeks before July 4th, based off the timetable from previous years. But is there a date that you have in mind? Maybe you take all of July just to sit by the pool, but after that, is there a date that you have in mind where you say, all right, now I got to flip the switch and start to get back into it?
Yeah, I think it's probably for me, it's the week or so before camp when I start preparing, our team rule books and playbooks and different things like that, and getting ready for our initial team meeting. This year we're doing it a little bit different. We're going to do a presentation at my house. We have a projector and a projector screen. We're going to make a slideshow, and we're going to have everybody over at my house from both EHL and EHLP. Mrs. Coach, or Sarah, my wife, doesn't know it yet, but we're going to have her cook up some food. She'll probably be very happy about that. Yeah, we're going to have the kids here, and we have the swimming pool, and we're going to make it a little bit different this year, our meeting. We're going to, throw a little curveball in there, have a little fun right off the bat, and then the day two we'll get right at it. So I think like maybe a week or two before we start our first day of camp is when I really hit the switch hard. Right now I'm still doing stuff. I'm still going to the rink. It's closed, obviously, but I'm still going there and doing inventory and getting things ready for next year little by little. That switch gets flipped and it's full go.
Well, I'm sure when she listens to this and finds out that she's going to be cooking, you'll have one more project on the list.
Yes, no question at all.
Well, that's episode 20. I'm sorry it took so long to get you on the podcast, but like I said, the first time ever having someone live on with me, so I'm glad I got to enjoy it here in the makeshift bar that you put together in your garage, and stay safe and enjoy the rest of the recruiting.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, and good luck to everyone, and stay safe and healthy.
Thanks for listening to The E-Show. Learn more at easternhockeyleague.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Also, be sure to subscribe and get notified when next week's podcast is released.